Padres Hot Tub is proudly presented this week once again by Estate Leak Detection and Plumbing, a local, trusted San Diego independent plumbing resource by our man Walter, 619-300-7203. Now, Chris Reed, as you know, and as our audience knows, Padres Hot Tub, sure, we're a podcast that talks about the Padres and other things, but our real animating concern, our mission statement, our raison d'etre is to put an actual hot tub inside Petco Park, to have there be a Padres hot tub inside the park. How are you going to put a hot tub inside the park without a qualified plumber to get the job done, Chris? I think Walter's our man.
This is called synergy. I saw it in a movie from the 90s, and I believe it fits perfectly here. Our guy, Wally, is going to do dependable work no matter what location, from your residential building to a corporate office to the top of the foul pole in Petco Park, running the line straight up that yellow beacon of hope to where you and I are sitting.
So we're going to actually be on top of the foul pole?
We have
in a hot tub?
I'm not an engineer or an architect or anything but a man of science. But I believe it can be done.
And how do we get up there? Helicopter ladder drop?
I'm going to need a crane, but there's plenty.
I mean, I kind of thought just putting it like on the Western Metal Building or over by the Callaway Ball. Or...
No, there's a show. I have a showmanship aspect to this with the crane, and it dips us over, and we go over the crowds. We're waving, and then it just teabags us right in.
Oh my God. Well, I'm sure Walter appreciated that. What he'd really appreciate is for you to give him a ring anytime here in San Diego you've got a far more routine plumbing issue, or you may think that you have a leak somewhere in your estate. Give Walter a call, 619-300-7203, 619-300-7203. And when you do, tell him the Padres Hot Tub sent you. Padres Hot Tub, everybody. It is June 5th, and the Padres still stink. We are here to talk about it with you. Look, in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad. Craig Elston, Chris Reed, Rafi Cantor. We are here. We are good. Kind of. We're all right. And we are here to talk with you. Oh, and Seeger's here. Seeger. Hi, Seeger. Chris's beloved son, Seeger, who normally makes an appearance during banter, missed his cue, which sometimes happens in the acting world. Nonetheless, Seeger missed his cue, Chris. I thought he was going to be there for banter.
He did, but he just wanted to give this to us, which is a note for all of our PhD audience. And for you, Craig, it is a blue love heart.
Blue?
Yeah, that's what they are.
Why not
now.
Brown? That's some Dodger loving from Corey Seager over there.
Oh no, Craig, is this the first sign? You've walked this path farther than I have, Craig. Now there's a little bit of panic in me. See, there's kind of even an LA in there, Craig.
What have you done?
What have I done?
Oh no. Well, we've got a lot to hash out. And in fact, we've got a lot to talk about on today's show. So let's dive into it. As we continue, toward the end of the show, we'll talk about what's happened with the Padres streaming and television options and whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. Fangraphs put out a great article on Fernando Tatis Jr. and what he's doing better or worse so far this year. What's going on inside the Padres front office? We will explore a little bit of that, but there's a lot to talk about on the field as well. So guys, we have set this up and we're going to continue it right until we get to the All-Star break. We set a target record. Last time we talked, the Padres had to go 20-14 to get to their target record. Let's update that now. The Padres need to go 19-12. After dropping 2 out of 3 to Chicago, we are recording this on Monday afternoon, about 4 hours before the finale between the Padres and the Cubs. So just keep that in mind. But the Padres guys need to go 19-12 between here and the All-Star break to be 2 games over 500. A lousy 2 games over 500 at the break, and to basically give AJ and Seidler and the rest of the Padres front office the space to be able to make a move that could help the team, as opposed to a reckless decision that guts the future in order to get us to 500. So, guys, and we've got some exciting stuff to bring up very shortly as well. Let's just start right there. We're no closer to our goal than we were the day we said it, Rafe. In fact, the day we said it, it was a 7-game over 500 move of 22-15. And now here it is, 19-12. They haven't moved an inch toward their goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite the journey we've been on so far this year. And I feel like over the last few weeks, we were in that kind of post-Kershaw meme stretch where the team seemed like they were just continually stepping on rakes left and right. And now we've kind of emerged from that into basically a 500 baseball team, where I think literally over the last week, it's been like win, loss, win, loss, win, loss has been our form. And it feels like that. They come out, they have a great offensive performance, then the next day they go to sleep. And then they come out the next day and they get all fired up. And the next day they strike out a bunch and they start chasing pitches and everything like that. So I feel like we're now at the point, which we've been saying this now for a few weeks, of like, it's not early anymore. This is kind of like who the team is. And we're going to talk a lot later about kind of like the way that the team is constructed and kind of like why the performance is kind of chronic at this point. But the Padres are a 500 baseball team right now who played poorly to begin. We had the opposite happen last year, where we got off to this hot start and then we were basically 500 the rest of the year until the playoffs. And, we had banked those wins. We had no banking, no checking, no savings, nothing this year. and now we are in the midst of having to play catch up and needing to break off a hot streak just to bring us back to even keel. So not good stuff.
Is that why we thrived at Lone Depot Park? Just because we're good to payday loan type team?
Yeah. How did you know? That's exactly right. Well, illustrating what you're saying, Rafi, statistically, in this morning's newsletter, Kevin AC broke it down, and I'm just going to read this because it's so friggin' obnoxious. Not on AC's part, on the Padres' part. 7 of the 19 times the Padres have scored at least 6 runs this season have come in their past 13 games. Okay, that's good. 7 out of the last 13, they've scored at least 6 runs. In that span, however, they have also scored 1 run 3 times, 2 runs once, and 3 runs once. 6 of their 19 games with at least 9 hits have come in those 13. So have 6 of their games with 5 hits or fewer. Not scoring has been going on all season, and it has cost the Padres in the clearest possible way. In their victories, the Padres averaged 6.59 runs per game, 10th highest in baseball. In their losses, 2.03 runs, 3rd lowest in Major League Baseball. And just this past week, it has been score 9, score 1, score 10, score 1, score 6, score 1. We're an on-off offense. Switch the light on, switch the light off, and that's what we've become so far, Chris, a team that you can't count on other than whatever they did yesterday, they'll probably do something different today.
It would be less frustrating to watch if you were the type of person that stayed awake 24 hours and then slept 24 hours and then could just like get your schedule in tune with when the Padres are winning. and you just think they were the best team in the league. That's one way to approach this Padres season for our hot tubbers out there. I did think it was interesting that the Padres broadcast put up the Cubs trade bait, despite the Padres are a game better than them. It just shows that the Padres' expectations have not quite caught up with their reality. We are seeing it a little bit with roster turnover and guys getting, put on the DIL and some other faces coming up that we haven't seen. But you don't want to be a game ahead of the Cubs and acting like you're better than them.
It's maddening, Rafi, to see what this club is doing right now. And look, it is one thing to get shut down by Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman is having a really, really good year. And all of his pitches are moving side to side. I saw a stat on yesterday's broadcast. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball at keeping his fastball in the lower quadrant of the strike zone and not elevating his pitches, which is everything that Marcus Stroman wants to do. And he's on a roll. Jameson Taillon is the opposite of that. He's been getting massacred start in and start out. I should know. I drafted him on our redraft fantasy league team and cut him like 2 weeks ago because every time out was like 2 1/3, 5 earned runs. And he sailed through 5 2/3 innings against San Diego on Friday night. It's here's the thing though, Rafe. It's not exactly the same as what we talked about 2 weeks ago. You've changed out the catcher. Gary Sanchez is hitting. Grisham has been a little bit better of late. Kim has been really good of late. I think really the issue is right in the heart of the order. Xander Bogaerts and now Manny Machado back and worse than they've ever been.
Yeah, I mean, just picking out that Taillon game on Friday night, Machado went 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. I know it was his first game back, but we're going to talk about like articles about Trent Grisham and Fernando Tatis Jr. later, and they're interesting stuff, and I'm looking forward to discussing them. But it's not the story of this team right now. The story of this team is that Manny Machado all year and Xander Bogaerts, outside of a couple weeks at the beginning of the season, have turned into pumpkins. And this team is living and dying by whether or not, we get a Rougned Odor hot pocket or someone else steps up on a random day, because it hasn't been these guys in quite some time. And, going back to the big picture of kind of what is going to be the fate of this 2023 Padres team, we built a team that is built on our guys all turning in at least 50 percentile, if not more, performances. And they are at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And, I'll save this for the Grisham discussion and everything, but it's like until these guys start to hit, we're locked in for a decade, boys. Like, we're locked in. So we are going to continue to live and die by Manny and Xander for years and years and years to come. So, I think the conversation for anything about what needs to change within the performance of the team has to start with those two guys, and rightfully so. Like, they're getting paid the big bucks now, and I'm whatever merits of the contract you want to argue about from like a person standpoint, I'm really happy for the two of them that they got their bag and that they seem like people I would want to be leaders of this club for a decade to come. They just got to do it on the field now. So.
Well, and, we'll talk more about Bogaerts in a little bit, Chris. So let's just stay on Manny for the time being. Manny's coming back from a fractured metacarpal in his hand, his left hand, his drive hand as a right-handed batter.
He done cracked his hand.
I'll refer to something we even talked about last week. Nobody's bones heal faster than other people's bones. Wolverine is not an MLB player. Okay. So that we know of.
If he did, you just have Magneto around and he'd just negate him completely. I mean, roster management, really easy.
That's a great call. Just hire Magneto. So this whole, well, we can get him back a little faster than we thought. I'm just going to say it. I think it's bullshit. I think they have rushed Manny Machado back because they're desperate, because they're losing, because they know they're a Stars and Scrubs roster, and they know that their star is out. And so Manny feels intense pressure. The training staff feels intense pressure. Bob Melvin, AJ Preller feel intense pressure. So Manny is back. He's always going to say that he's ready to go. He said he was ready to go last year when he was 2 months away from being ready. And then he rewarded the Padres with 2 bad months of play on the field. And I think people forget that. But in the middle of his second in the league and MVP voting, in the summer, Manny Machado was really bad when he came back in 10 days from his badly sprained ankle. He hit kind of like he's hitting now. And I'm just kind of throwing it out to both of you, but I feel like the last 2 weeks showed us, as the Padres played a little over 500 and scored a half a run more per game without Manny than with Manny. I'm not saying throw out Manny, but I think the 50% Manny is not as good as a 100% Ha-Sung Kim and playing a replacement level player at the other, whether it's Dixon or Odor, at the other position. Like, honestly, Manny can go back on the IL as far as I'm concerned if he's not going to come out and hit.
I don't disagree with you, dude, in the rushing back. I don't know who's responsible. I know Manny wants to play. He prides himself on being a guy who posts, who goes out there and does it. His quote that I saw was that it's almost not even hurting anymore, which is just an incredible thing to hear about a broken bone that you want to heal. It was that, it's almost not hurting, so things should go great. He has been bad all year, right? Like, there's been a baseline of Manny kind of sucking. He's been bad in a different way since he came back. He's striking out at a crazy high clip, which to me doesn't indicate something wrong with his swing. It's just the speed of the game, or his approach at the plate is off. Because prior to injury, in 25 previous plate appearances, he had struck out once. Since coming back, he's had 11 at bats, so 12 plate appearances, because he walked 13. He walked once and he got hit once. And he struck out 4 times. He's striking out in a third of his plate appearances, where that had been at 4% prior to the injury. And he's ran into a few hard balls since he's came back, but his launch angle's all off, so they've all been outs. So he's 1 for 11. And
by the way, the one was a better
yeah.
third baseman would have made the play.
Yeah.
It could have been 0 for 11 very easily.
Yeah. Well, or 1 for 11 with one of those hard hit balls landing. But either way,
sure,
something's way off. He's not the Manny that we need. Even going back to when he was bad before the injury, he was at least making contact. It wasn't great contact, wasn't good at all, but he was hitting the ball with the bat. Since coming back, he's not hitting the ball with the bat. I don't want to harp on his defense. He made a heck of a grab in yesterday's game that had a throw go towards the Toyota Terrace and cost the team a little bit in what wound up being a blowout. That was Ryan Weathers' first run, was on a Manny Machado error. I think he got the other 5 earned, or other 6 earned. But the problem is at the bat. And Manny could, go on the IL, sure, but looks like Xander Bogaerts kind of belongs there too, man. So, like, do you take both of your multi-million-dollar infielders out, plug in your replacement-able guys? Like, yeah, I love seeing Drake Cronenworth play second base. That's a great place to see the guy. And they brought up Avila to play first. He's covering it. I think there's enough depth in the lineup for the Stars to get back to 100%.
Yeah, and really quickly, like, you mentioned him going 1 for 11 this weekend. I know Manny hasn't been on the IL. I mean, this is the first time in his Padres career he's been on the IL. Even when he hurt his ankle last year, he didn't actually go on the IL. And therefore, he hasn't had the opportunity to have a true rehab appearance in a minor league game. This is his rehab appearance, what we're seeing now. And It's happening in the major leagues where the games count. Like, we're seeing it, and we're seeing that he needs time. And I would hope that as someone who is supposed to be, we said it a million times, give him the C, the captain of this team. Some of that comes with the responsibility of saying, I too need time to get right so that I am not hurting the team. And I think that between him and Xander, we're seeing a lot. I mean, Xander came out and said the other day, like, because Manny's been out, I haven't felt like I can take time off. And now that Manny's back, we're seeing him getting some rest. And like that grit is great. But, and that's like what the things that you love to write stories about and feel good about and everything. But arguably, we saw it with Austin Nola this year. I mean, we're never going to know the explanation, but he took a foul ball or a fastball straight to the face and then like didn't take time off and has been terrible all year. And I mean, like he wasn't good before. He's extra bad now. And it's like, but he's just a veteran, grit and all this stuff, but he's bad. Like, I don't care about grit if you're bad. Like if you're great and you're good, that's amazing. But if it's great and you're bad, then like you're just hurting your team off of some sort of like weird macho BS. So like, I want to see leadership, and not just in the way of like being good, but also like taking responsibility.
Absolutely. And I'll just add to that even more, because I think that there is fault to the player there, but there is way more fault to the organization catering to a player. Every player is going to try and be a macho tough guy. They feel the internal and external pressure of being a Major League Baseball player, of being replaceable, of the knowledge that every day there's someone trying to take your job. But Manny Machado is on a no trade, no cut, 11-year contract extension, $350 million. Yes, he's a leader on the team. Yes, he feels internalized pressure, but that's where management must step in and say, we don't care how much you're worried about this, that, or the other thing. Your bone's got to heal until we put you back out there, because by the way, it's bad for the player to go back out on the field at less than 100% and struggle and get booed and get blamed, like we are clearly blaming Manny Machado right now for the team's poor performance, for their poor offense, their inconsistency. By the way, he's also committed back-to-back errors, which is something I think is the second time in his Padres career that he's ever had errors in back-to-back games. The error he made Saturday was shocking, like the way he chucked it over the head of the first baseman. And look, sometimes you got to save the player from himself. And we're going to talk about it more with Xander, which I definitely believe is the case, but I think they have failed throughout the last 5 years to keep Manny from himself.
He's
in
an
situations
investment.
like this.
He's an investment. You want to talk about the back end of that 11-year deal? If he is breaking down because we overused him when he wasn't healing in his age 31 season, that by his age 41 season, like he literally can't pick up a baseball bat or can't like do it. Like this is what the stuff that we're talking about. Like you're not only like, oh, like we're trying to get the production out of him now because the back half of that contract's going to stink, so we need him on the field, but it's going to be even worse if we're not like taking care of him. So that is absolutely right, Craig. Like this is something from an organizational standpoint that someone needs to be stepping in and laying down the law. So I hope that we see that at some point soon. But
you kind of hope that the manager would step in and protect his guys to an extent. I don't want to start a Melvin pile-on for the season, but that is clearly one of the modern manager's biggest job, is managing the clubhouse and keeping the team as optimal as it possibly can. And he's one of the few guys that would know whether Manny Machado is playing at a level that he should be at.
We've got so much more to talk about, but really quickly, I want to mention something very exciting for everybody who is listening or especially watching today's show, which is that we are doing a Padres ticket giveaway, and we are doing it based on our YouTube channel. Did you know Padres Hot Tub is no longer just a podcast? We are also a YouTube show. Did you know Pods Above Replacement is even more a video show than it is a podcast? We'd like you very much, if you haven't, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And so here's what we're doing. We are going to give away a pair of tickets to the Friday, June 23rd game between the Padres and the Washington Nationals at Petco Park. And qualifying for our opportunity drawing is extremely simple. All you have to do is be subscribed on our YouTube channel and leave a comment on either this week's episode or next week's episode. We are going to announce the winner on our June 19th show. So 2 shows from now. So you've got between now and then to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to drop a comment on either this show, the June 5th show, or our June 12th show. Either one will do. Both will equally enter you into the opportunity drawing. We are approaching 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We soared over 500 last week. So we're really, really excited about that and looking forward to continuing to grow. So that's all you have to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop a comment on today's show or on next week's show. And on June 19th, we will pick from that pool of people and give somebody 2 tickets to the Nationals Padres game on June 23rd. Must be able to attend. So, not eligible for our folks in Spain and Australia and Thailand and the United Kingdom, or even Iowa and Atlanta, and Montana, and the many other places where we have Padres Hot Tub listeners. But if you're going to be in town, please go ahead, subscribe, drop a comment. Subscribe, drop a comment wherever you are. But anyone eligible, good luck. And we hope that you're taking in a game on us on June 23rd.
It should be noted that that's not the only way to get tickets given away to you as a Padres Hot Tub listener. Our big patrons score tickets all the time in the Discord.
They do.
I'm seeing it on a near weekly basis. So maybe also head to our patreon.com website address and see about getting some tickets by increasing your investment in the Padres Hot Tub.
Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. We'll talk more about that later as well. Okay, Sunday, Padres lost 7-1. Game absolutely stunk. The game stunk because Ryan Weathers was terrible. He got hammered. He was out of there in an inning and 2/3. And I don't want to say I hate to say it. I don't hate to say it. Seth Lugo's good. Padres are missing Seth Lugo, Rafe. We talked at the beginning of the year about how the Padres had so many options, and are they going to have a 6-man rotation? And what are you going to do to manage Nick Martinez's innings and to manage Seth Lugo's innings? Well, Lugo took a calf strain. Martinez went to the bullpen. And now, whenever something goes wrong, it's Ryan Weathers' turn. Seth Lugo's out. Ryan Weathers is in. Ryan Weathers, in his 4 starts since April, has given up 15 earned runs in 17 1/3 innings pitched. He's been bad. His FIP is 5.18 at this point. It's been pretty much a disaster for Ryan Weathers, in line with what you'd kind of expect coming into the season and knowing where he was in his prospect profile. And I just didn't think that we'd be at the stage of like, God, we miss Seth Lugo, but we miss Seth Lugo. I don't like having that dead spot in the rotation that's going to pop up once a week, and you just kind of know this is almost a scheduled loss.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's not that Seth Lugo's numbers were like incredibly inspiring. He had a 4.1 ERA, which is not good, but like from a 5-starter is perfectly acceptable. His expected numbers are not that great either. I'd say that 4.1 ERA is actually a little bit lucky. His expected ERA is 4.89. It's more so that what's been the story of Ryan Weathers' career with the Padres more than the team putting him in positions to not succeed? and I think that like this is kind of one of them where he, we called him up when he was like 20 years old or something to fill in like a playoff spot because the organizational depth was shot, and he came in, and then that kind of set the expectations like completely unreasonably high for him, because his entire time, Eric Longenhagen at Fangraphs had projected him as like a 7th or 8th inning relief guy. That's kind of where he set the bar for him. And then it became, well, he needs to be our 5th starter. And because of the way that because he was a first round pick and because of expectations, you know what I mean? And it's a pattern that we continue to see with the team where it's like we establish a narrative with someone. And then when I say we, I mean AJ Preller. It's like AJ Preller establishes a narrative with someone and then nothing sways the narrative. Nothing sways the narrative until despite everything in the universe pointing otherwise. And we're going to breeze right past his parents tweeting, and that was a story from weeks ago, which I find funny, kind of in hindsight. I just don't think that he's first of all a very young pitcher still. He's still only 23 years old. And he made a bunch of mechanical changes, in the offseason. I'm not completely given up on the idea of Ryan Weathers, but seeing the kind of stuff he has, I'm like, oh, this guy would be great if we turned him into a wicked bullpen arm. He's got the gas. He's got the fastball. He's got some good secondary pitches. But asking him to try and fit in the square peg of being a starting pitcher when he clearly is the round hole, sort of, so to speak, of not being able to fit in that mold, I think is failing the player. So I'm not going to excuse a bad performance. He pitched poorly. He needs to wear that and everything like that. But I just think we need to be conceptualizing his role with the team a little bit differently, Craig.
You know how I conceptualize Ryan Weathers? As not a major league starter.
Yeah.
I look at Ryan Weathers as a non-prospect who is trudging through a replacement below replacement level career. Can I tell you how many in his major league career quality starts Ryan Weathers has pitched?
Can I guess?
Sure.
I'm going to say 1.
It's 1 this year when it was 6 innings, 3 runs. The barest definition. There are no others. In 2021, there were none. Okay. Now, let me give you something else. At every level of Ryan Weathers' minor league career, including this season, he's never had one stop where he didn't allow more hits than innings pitched. And he hasn't had one stop where he struck out more batters than innings pitched. This is a pitch to contact, low stuff plus pitcher. Doesn't have one out pitch. He's got a good changeup. Okay. He's got a pretty good changeup. He tunnels it off his fastball. Okay. His fastball is just okay. His slider is nothing special. He gives up hits in AA. He gave up hits in high A. He gives up hits in AAA, and he gives up hits in the big leagues. And when I look at a pitcher like that, what is his upside? His upside is low leverage junk relief. His upside is Nabil Chrismat. Pitch in meaningless innings and maybe trudge your way through with your 6 strikeouts per 9 innings or 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. And maybe that's enough. I don't think Ryan Weathers is ever going to develop into the kind of pitcher that can pitch leverage innings for the San Diego Padres. Now, if you want to tell me that another organization is going to take him and add 4 miles to his fastball or get him to hide the ball like Sid Fernandez or reshape something, fine. But I don't see it. I haven't seen it. And nothing, there's literally, I feel like no piece of evidence showing me that there's a great pitcher inside Ryan Weathers.
And I don't feel like there's another organization. He's already got Ruben Niebla here. And I feel like that's why he started his season so strong, is he was using every guidance that came to him and locating his pitches all right and not walking guys. Not speaking even about the future or what he could be, he's the 5th guy in the rotation because the Padres think he can give them innings and get 3 outs 5 times in his games. And if he's not doing that, like he hasn't the past 4 starts, then it's time to go next man up. And it's a shame because Julio Teheran is a Brewer and giving them okay starts. And Jay Groom has not panned out so far in El Paso. Not that we'd expect him to, but he's not the guy we wanted him to be so far. And there's not I mean, who else comes to mind besides a trade target that you'd have to give up a top 15 prospect for, and then maybe not make the playoffs.
Well, Rafi, you and John Prokota on Pods Above Replacement, the next podcast down in your feed, if you're on the free feed here, went through state of the pitching organizationally for the Padres after 2 months, and in particular, you guys did a segment on minor league possibles, and honestly, it ain't there. Like it's Jay Groom with his 8.8 ERA at AAA, and then it's a kid at AA, and it's a kid at high A. Like, there's nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, if we just spent all this time talking about Ryan Weathers not being a starter and all this stuff. If you want a little sobering shot of reality, if you look at our 2024 projected rotation, he's currently our third starter. Because in terms of people who are slotted in for sure, Michael Wacha is, I would say at this point, likely to opt out of his contract. Seth Lugo, depending on how he performs when he comes back, it's possible he could opt out of his contract. Nick Martinez is either a bullpen piece or maybe a starter or maybe opting out of his contract. So AJ Preller, in the hope to, do that risk reversal thing we talked about, where we're like basically buying players' upsides in exchange for their downsides, has essentially boxed us in because now we also have a lot of uncertainty baked in, where we don't have the players and stuff coming up we don't have a pipeline. We don't have a pipeline in double and triple A because of all the trades we've made and everything like that. And then the free agent deals we have made are subject to player options. So we're at the whims of all these guys.
The Wacha deal also has a team option. The team can exercise an option for $16 million each of the next two.
It does, but I mean, he would have to have the performance that he had in May, in June and July, at least, in order to justify, I think, us making a $32 million commitment to him. So I think it's, when we talked about this deal at the beginning of the year, I think plurality likely outcome was that he opted out. Like it's actually like constructed in a way specifically to kind of like, he would have to be really bad for him to take his $6.5 million player option, and it'd have to be really good for us to take the club option. So the likely outcome is that he opts out. And
but we're in the middle of it, and he's been good. He's been as good as he was last year. So it seems likely that $16 million for a guy who's going to give you a player of the month, even once during the season, and then turn in if he does the same season he did last year, or even marginally worse, $16 million's a bargain.
And I'll crib a little bit. I'll crib a little bit off what you guys said on your show today, but I mean, you looked at his 5 starts in the month of May, Rafi, and compared him to his other starts, and there was very little that distinguished previous starts from the May starts other than the fly balls didn't go over the fence. And that's not a guarantee that it's going to continue. And in particular, once the weather heats up a little bit as you go into the summer. So I took away from that, from your guys's, kind of breakdown, that Wacha is a prime regression candidate for the summer, that we could expect a couple months of him pitching to a 5+ ERA as opposed to a 3-ish ERA. And maybe Wacha has figured something out, and maybe he has locked in a mechanical adjustment that has allowed him to be more effective. But point being, I think the point that you're driving, as well as myself, is that there's very, very, very little margin for error within what the Padres are doing from a pitching standpoint. Like, Snell better a little lately. Darvish, great start last time out. Start before that, bad. Musgrove, really good 2 starts in a row. So you're hoping he's turning the corner. But that 4-5 slot, you need Wacha to keep it up. You need Lugo back. And really, we're in a position, Chris, where two injuries really sinks the staff, sinks it.
Yeah, the worst case is, Noto, Joe, or you. Those guys need to have healthy, productive seasons. The list of pitchers that are available at the trade deadline is significant, but Man, I don't want to think about us. I don't want to think about the trade deadline right now. I need to see the 19 wins before I'm in a decent uh, frame of mind to ponder those possibilities.
All right, so let me just try. Let me just try. Okay, we've got so many things to talk about. I feel like they all suck. Are there any signs of life here? Are there signs, even if they're a little bit hard to see? You know, we're the show that likes to pull things out weeks in advance, right? We did the Memorial Day episode a week before Memorial Day. A lot of the things that people are talking about in Padres Nation now are things we were talking about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So while we're all in the doldrums here, 7 of the last 13 games, the Padres have been putting up a 6 spot or better. And yes, they are 100. They're doing a 1-for-1 mix in the batter right now between good games and 1 run on 5 hit games. But that's better than the last 2 weeks of May when it felt like it was 1 run on 5 hits every game. So if the offense is starting to tick up a little, seems to me that it wouldn't take that much to put this team on a winning track. The Padres have multiple Gold Glove nominees 2 months into the season. They're arguably playing the best defense in baseball at second base and shortstop and right field. Center field is way up there. And the team is pitching, save Ryan Weathers, that we just discussed at length. Like, the bullpen has pitched extremely well, and the starting staff in May pitched extremely well. All you have to do is look back at the game in Yankee Stadium, the Hader game that was blown in Miami. It makes it a 7-2 road trip, and that would have been the kind of trip that the Padres need to get on a roll. So do either of you feel like we are seeing the slow trudge out of the mud that a good team is trying to get out of the quicksand here?
I mean, I kind of have all year to an extent, but that's been the frustrating thing about the team is it's always 1 or 2 superstars away from, of their superstars producing away from winning games. These are one run games that we're talking about. Their record in 1-run games are horrible. Their record in extra inning games is terrible. So that's why when they get behind 7-1, you don't feel like you're watching a game anymore. You feel like you're just kind of watching a spring training match because the game has already been recorded. It's over. And now these guys are just workshopping things, or we're trying to, continue our bullpen auditions for who's going to be Drew Pomerantz in September.
Yeah. I also like want to point out that like we've gotten some like kind of sneaky good performances out of some of these fringe guys from the bullpen. A lot of it's come, like Drew Carlton, who's basically the new Nabil Krismat, which is why you don't get attached to people like Nabil Krismat, is because a new one comes up. But Drew Carlton in 11 and 2/3 innings has a 2.31 ERA with a 2.77 FIP. And his stuff plus numbers have regressed a little bit, so his pitch modeling is like not. But when he came up, it was like he had all above average pitches, and it was like, what the hell is going on? Now it's kind of stabilized a little bit, and they're about average. But that's the point: is that you can just get a guy who has average stuff and bring him up. Tom Cosgrove is turning into the man that we hoped Tim Hill would be. He's the lefty specialist. He has 12 1/3 innings, a 0 ERA in those 12 1/3 innings. A 1.82 FIP. He's looked incredible. He's looked great.
Yum.
It's yummy, and I would love to honestly see him start to be put in positions that Tim Hill has been put in this year, because Tim Hill has been a little stinky this year, and not the guy that was
last year too at times, right? There were times where it looked like he was heading for a DFA.
Yes. And this year it's, he has a 5.63 K per 9 rate. Not good. His FIP is a 5.33. So he's been well below replacement level this year for the Padres. So, I think that, I don't know with Tim Hill's wacky delivery if he has the stamina to be a mop-up guy and soak up innings, but like I would love to see their roles reversed, because right now we have Tim Hill coming in the 7th inning in some games when we're competitive, and he's basically the last person I want to see in that role right now. So and to kind of end on this point, it's what makes me hopeful for the pitching in the future, is because clearly I think that Ruben Yabel has his fingerprints on this, that you have these fringe guys coming up and producing in the opportunities that they have. So I think that like there are signs of life if you really look for it, and I agree with you, Craig. There's very little offensively that it would take for this team to get a little bit of a boost.
You bring up a really good point though, and I just want to circle to it again, because the next thing I wrote under signs of life is that there's some potentially good arms and power arms coming to the bullpen. And I know that at least you, Chris, and maybe you too, Rafi, are kind of like Morahone. I don't want to hear about it. But he's throwing upper 90s in the minors. He's on his way back. Suarez has begun a throwing
starter,
program.
Craig.
No, he's not. No, he's not. And Suarez is on his way back. He's started a throwing program, so you're hoping that he returns. But the point that Rafi just made that I think is important to underline is that what Tom Cosgrove is doing right now is literally the best you could expect from any reliever anywhere ever. 12 scoreless innings. So it's not like, oh, well, now we got Morahone. Well, is he going to throw 12 scoreless innings? Because Tom Cosgrove isn't going to throw another 12 scoreless innings. I mean, maybe he will. Maybe he's Jeremy Fekoch. Maybe he's going to go 21 1/3 scoreless to start his major league career. Of course, we know where Jeremy Fekoch wound up. It wasn't as a 10-year major league reliever. He's throwing that sweeper that slurves in over the outside edge, and it's beautiful. And he reminds me of some classic loogie relievers over the years. But point being, when Wilson's pitching great and Cosgrove's pitching great and Carlton's pitching great, well, if you bring in other arms, all they could do is match that. It's not like the Padres are really leaking in the bullpen these days, where you're like, oh, we bring in these guys and it's going to patch up the leaks. It's more of like, we bring in these guys and they've got to keep up what these other guys have been doing, because that we're not going to get to the end of the year and be like, well, Carlton, Cosgrove, and Wilson were our 3 best relievers this season, and the 3 guys we're going to count on in 2024. So point being, it's exciting arms are coming back, but they're already pitching well. It's for me, guys, it's way much more of a situation of, can the offense catch up to the pitching before the pitching falls down to the offense? Because what you keep putting high stress on a pitching staff over the course of weeks into months, then the pitching staff falls apart. And then you get that late summer, we can't get anybody out stretch. And I'm not saying that's going to happen for the Padres, but if they don't ever take the pressure valve down and start giving the team routinely 5, 6, 7 runs that they can say, well, at least 4 or 5 times a week we get that, it's going to happen. And new arms isn't going to fix it.
No, you're right, man. The team's fundamental problem, and we'll say this till we're blue in the face, is hitting, and specifically the best players on the team not hitting.
So with that, let's go to Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts has been absolutely terrible since getting hit on his, turns out, chronically injured left wrist. The more that Xander Bogaerts talks about his left wrist, the more scared I get about the Padres' commitment to Xander Bogaerts. It went from this, oh, it's no big deal, I get a shot every spring, it's, don't worry. Just came up in the last week of spring, don't worry. And then we give him a cortisone shot, and that's how the Xander Bogaerts machine works. Like, it went from that to he's hit on the wrist, he's fine, to a month of pop-outs and weak ground balls, to then public revelation, his wrist is bothering him, to now Xander Bogaerts talking about, for 7 years, 7 years I've dealt with soreness in my wrist, and it is what it is, and I do this and that. Xander Bogaerts saying specifically, treatment is not helping.
Yeah.
So first things first, Xander Bogaerts needs to go on the DL. There's IL or the DL or the QL. He needs to go on something with an L because he's costing the Padres L's right now by hitting either first or fourth in the lineup and not being able to perform. Stop with we just talked about this with Manny. Stop with the tough guy act. Stop with the macho bullshit. Stop with the I am getting paid this, so I've got to do that. Go get right. The 35% version of Xander Bogaerts is a losing Padres team. Same as the Manny Machado situation. Bogaerts got to go on the IL.
Craig, if he goes away from the team, he's going to risk giving up a league lead in an offensive category, which the Padres have precious few. I'm fairly certain as of this weekend, he was the league leader in infield singles.
Woo!
Do you just want to throw that away? His feet are working fine, Craig. No, dude, you're right. Like, this guy needs a break. He needs a long break. The Padres have precious little roster flexibility. Matt Carpenter, they're down to 1 DH with Matt Carpenter. But if Bogaerts needs days off and not going on the IL, and Manny might need one here and two because his hand gets swollen, all of a sudden you've got 2 bench guys besides Austin Nola. And as tempting as it is, maybe we don't want to see Austin Nola at shortstop. Maybe that's not a reality any of us want to face. So yeah, give the guy a long break. He's said multiple times the only thing that fixes it is rest. That is the treatment. Let him undergo treatment. 10 days, 15, whatever. There are options. The Padres have an incredibly strong middle infield. They have one of their best middle infielders playing right field. They can get creative. They have roster depth. They can do it.
And they have Jose Iglesias. And
Yes.
I know, Craig, I could see you for people who aren't watching on video, which you hopefully are. He was like I could see steam coming from his ears. He was just ready to say Jose Iglesias.
I haven't seen that look since the blankets were coming.
There.
He's
right
literally
there.
just sitting there. He's hitting. Okay, I'm not even going to say, I'm going to say slash line because it's fun, but this is El Paso, so it doesn't count. He's hitting 316 with a 360 on base and a 544 slugging percentage. Okay, so ignore that. Listen to what I'm about to say next, because WRC Plus, as hopefully you know because you watched the Pods Above Replacement explainer on it, is a league adjusted statistic. So 100 is league average. He has a 108 WRC Plus in AAA right now in how many plate appearances? 125 plate. How does he already have 125 plate appearances? 125 plate appearances in El Paso. He has a 108 WRC plus, and Jose Iglesias for his entire career has been a glove first shortstop. So you know he's going to come up and provide good defense. And Rugi, for his nice hot pocket that we had with him, I thank him for his service. I'm sick of seeing him trying to be effing Derek Jeter and making running throws that sail over Jake Cronenworth's head. And I would much rather see in those spot days where we need a bat up to have Jose Iglesias kind of slot into that second base and shortstop thing. And I have to say with the Bogaerts thing and the wrist, this is probably the most upset I've ever been on this show. And like, I don't have a long history, but like,
oh no.
The whole thing about like, did he do his due diligence? Did AJ Preller do his due diligence in learning about, this wrist injury and everything like that? I truly, in my heart of hearts, don't think it would have mattered. If he got a report that said this guy has a bad wrist or whatever, he would have blown through the stop sign. And the original sin is Eric Hosmer. Okay. And you can, yes, we're coming back. We're coming back because you hire the guy, time is a flat circle. You hire the guy who writes the article that says Eric Hosmer is a free agent bomb and you sign him anyway. That's on you. So if Xander Bogaerts had a bad wrist, I don't think Preller would have cared. He would have cared about, but think about the upside, guys. Think about if all 4 of our guys are firing on cylinders. That's a 162 win team. Okay. That's all he would have been thinking about. So, did he do his due diligence? I honestly don't think it mattered. He would have blown through the stop sign.
Yeah, and that's the question I asked on our Padres Hot Tub Discord on Sunday, and it just it just really sticks in my mind that, and I think you're right, Rafi, but I just wonder, did Peter Seidler have a dossier put in front of him that said very clearly, you're investing in a guy who's had a chronic wrist issue for the last several years? Did the Padres docs give Xander a clean bill of health? AC wrote as just a blip today that the Padres did not consider his wrist to be a concern. How much research did they do? Did they do a Carlos Correa level of due diligence? Would it surprise anybody if, kind of echoing what Rafi just said, if somebody did give AJ Preller a red manila folder with a top secret on it, that when you opened it up, it said you under no circumstances should sign Xander Bogaerts. He has arthritis in his wrist. He's going to lose all of his power. He's going to be a Jose Iglesias level power hitter in a year or two. He's going to barely be able to move his wrist when he's 50 years old, et cetera, et cetera. And that he took that, tucked it in the bottom drawer of his desk, wrote out a paragraph that said Xander Bogaerts is fine with a big smiley face, and handed that to Peter Seidler and said, oh no, the medicals came back clean. I mean, I wouldn't say it about a GM. I would not impugn a GM to create a second set of medical records, a false set of medical records, and hand it to a superior, except that he literally did that and got suspended for it in his Padres GM career.
I mean, the question comes to ask, remember when Bogart signed and all the articles were like, most GMs did not think he would eclipse $200 million in his total contract value, and that the Red Sox were negotiating a 6-year, 160 extension with him, which obviously was not sufficient for Scott Boras and Xander Bogaerts. And MLB trade rumors, for instance, predicted Xander would sign for a 7-year, $189 million extension. And, it's amazing. It's, I again, not our money. Another animating concern to this podcast, not our money. If the spigot's going to stay on, who cares? Okay. But isn't it a little interesting that we are always so much, coming in and bidding against ourselves with these guys? You know what I mean? So I'm upset. That's all. I'm going to stop there.
Can we tie this into something we want to discuss later? Because it speaks directly to the organization and our kind of fears about how it's run.
Please.
All right.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Yeah. Lead us in, Craig, because it's, you're familiar with the tweet.
Okay. So, we have multiple times in the last few weeks here on Padres Hot Tub referred to a Twitter account, which is at Too Much Mortons. His name is his screen name is Giannis Antigatapoodle. Some people on Twitter have referred to him as having the first name of Tom or Tommy. I have never met Too Much Mortons, and I can tell you that I don't know anyone who's ever met Too Much Mortons.
He is a Twitter account. This is a Twitter account.
He is a Twitter account. I'm sure there's a human being behind it.
Sure.
But that
is a
human
bold
being
assumption sometimes.
Sure, but that human being we've never seen. Apparently, the face on his avatar might be him. I don't know that 100% for sure. He was invited to be on the show last year. He declined. He doesn't do any interviews. He doesn't do any. No one's seen him. I mean, as far as I know, no one's seen him. So if someone is out there in our listening audience that has had an audience with Too Much Mortons, and you want to say that what I'm saying is counterfactual, please step forward. If Too Much Mortons would like to step forward, please step forward. The only reason I'm saying that, and it's not in any way to impugn him or to neg him. All right. And I've said it many times on this show. I really like the analysis generally that comes from Too Much Morton's. And usually he does a lot of video breakdown. He does a lot of statistical breakdown. I have never, ever seen this account as a breaking news account. All right. No one has ever confused Too Much Morton's with Woj or Shams. All right.
Until
this weekend, Too Much Morton's put out a long Twitter thread that you could say kind of broke new. You don't even know. Nothing's confirmed. There's no sourcing. Nothing has been confirmed. Nothing's been denied. Nothing's been nothing. There's nothing. So it's tweets. Okay. And I want to be clear about that because I'm not going to, I've still got enough, like, whatever, journalistic training, however you want to put it.
Credibility, Craig.
That I don't feel comfortable speaking about these things as if we know in any way that they are factual or whether they are made up or single sourced or not sourced, like we don't know. I wanted to say that as an entry for the conversation because I feel like as a result, we can only be speculative with what we're about to read. But now I'll read his tweets into the record. Okay. He says, "This is how cheap the Padres are on behind the scenes stuff. Josh Stein combines people's jobs into one, so the advanced scout is suddenly the video guy. Draft analyst is suddenly doing admin work. Requests for interns to unburden workloads would be denied. We've lost a couple of talented execs because there's no room for upward growth. We don't attract analysts because starting salaries are low considering the work needed to be done. Ask yourself has Stein been allowed to be here for 20 years, bad team after bad team? Flashy moves are fun, but they mask a bigger underlying issue. There's something missing in this organization in terms of player optimization. If you're willing to spend heavily in talent, you should also be willing to spend heavily on whatever it takes to get the best out of the talent. I love Seidler for what he's done, but I think we've all wanted an owner who spends heavily on the roster. But Preller and his cronies are wasting so much of his money. Remember when they spent almost $100 million in international free agents and only netted like Morejon and Patino? And he continues on and he says, I'll go further. Preller is the root of all these issues. He's a meddler who has input on what's instructed versus letting departments have their own autonomy. On top is a revolving door in coaching positions. This is a formula for inconsistency. One of the craziest stories I heard was Preller wanted Hosmer. So when the analytics department gave him a negative report towards Haas, Preller said, this isn't what I asked for. Paint him in a good light. You think this is insanity, right? But ask yourself, Preller hired Dave Cameron, who literally wrote an article that offseason about why Hosmer would be a bad signing. How do you hire that guy and not listen to him? And it continues, and you can read the thread at Too Much Morton's. The stuff in the second half of that is just a retelling of the Rosenthal-Lynn September 2021 article. And I have no way of knowing whether Too Much Morton's has a real source or a bad source or no source or two sources, and this is true journalism. But the assertion here, speaking generally, is that the Padres are being penny foolish by spending huge on players and not investing in the infrastructure in their department to make the team better. Now, Rafi, the Padres can come right back just like they did when that graph was posted on Twitter, that random ass graph, and say, no, the graph is wrong. We have X number of people in our analytics department. We have devoted X number of resources to this club. It's internal information, so it's stuff that's not really easily verifiable. And I think the reason this resonates is because it comports with how we feel when we watch this team and we see them struggle against bad pitching.
You have to wonder why. There's the feeling, I think it's like a myth that we have around like Padres fandom, which is that when players come here or they're traded here or whatever, they tend to perform worse and than when they come from their original club. And you have to ask why that might be. Is that really all in our heads? or is that something that we is borne out in truth? Why is it that the Padres under AJ Preller have consistently underperformed projections? We talked about that on last week's show. Don't need to get back into it in this one. And a lot of this stuff is proprietary and a lot of this stuff is behind closed doors. And that's why we're not going to get answers that are going to be satisfying unless AJ Preller is fired and the crew is wiped out. And then we get some stories about this, that, and the other. But I'm going to tell you just something that happened to me this weekend that was a pure eye test. And I'll keep it very brief. I went to Dodgers Yankees at Dodger Stadium. I have been to probably a dozen Padres games at Dodger Stadium. And every game, Craig, you and I did it last year.
Mm-hmm.
I go and watch the pitcher warm up in the bullpen. I get there a few minutes early and I go and watch the pitcher warm up. And the Yankees, when Garrett Cole was warming up, did something I've never seen the Padres do there. They had a TrackMan on a tripod behind the catcher. And they also had for lack of a better word, like a rope strike zone that was connected to an instrument that was kind of off to the side. And the instrument was picking up, just rudimentary data, speed, whatever. And, if, he hit the edge of the zone, it would light up, all that stuff. And after every pitch, Garrett Cole would throw a pitch. They'd come back. Matt Blake, the Yankees pitching coach, was standing behind him. And they'd look at an iPad right next to him. And they'd go, oh, okay, information. Interesting. Now let's go again. And let's fine tune and let's get it all. And as thrilled as I am that we have Ruben Niebla, and I'm sure that he is doing some of the stuff that I just cannot see. So I don't want to speak for what I don't know, but I've never seen something like that from the Padres ever. And that is a completely anecdotal and personal take on something that I think is not an uncommon feeling among the fan base. And I think that that is what this tweet storm is kind of getting after. And I'd be really curious where you guys kind of stand on this issue.
Chris, go ahead.
I have a couple thoughts. The Padres don't feel like an organization that is doing things right in the intangible things of game prep, advanced scouting, baseball operations as a whole, because we can look at the teams that we know do. There's a handful in Major League Baseball that have outstanding reputations for doing all these things, and they're consistently in the mix. Even when they're having bad months, they're around 500. They're winning games, they're winning series here and there. The Padres, as we all know, are not freaking consistent. They have a roster that should be up there with these teams, and then all the other stuff isn't showing up. It's just not coming up in the test results, the test being games. So when the test gets administered, the results are different. You have to think there's something else that's not going into it. Hate to do an anonymous tweet I saw because I don't follow things anymore. But I think it might have been Kevin AC, and he saw the Padres using a pitching machine during batting practice this past week that he had never seen that before. Why?
Yeah, a velocity machine, a machine that throws sliders and curveballs and throws high velo.
Yeah. Why is this a new thing? This is 2023. I know I've seen that in other broadcasts before of players taking batting practice. Why are the Padres adapting this now after they had to have a historically bad offensive campaign to begin the season? So I read the tweet. It resonates as true from that, Craig. Just like you said, I wanted to. There has to be some friggin' fire to this because the smoke is too thick. The other thing about this whole ordeal that blows my mind is that this got tweeted out as news, and Sports Illustrated picked it up. Sports Illustrated reported it as it was an actual person. They reported
and called him a Padres insider.
Yeah.
He's a Twitter account.
It's a Twitter account. And guys, I have not revealed this, but I blocked this account back when I had, because I went to go look at it and it was like, oh, this account's blocked. I don't know why. It could have been a bunch of different things. More than likely, it was just asserting information was true. It was bad journalism. And I used to use Twitter to follow journalists to get my news. We've got to get better as a society in the bigger picture, not just in sports, and discerning our information and what is real and what we have to walk forward as facts. Because our opinions inform what we say, and that informs how we we communicate with other folks. So if the whole Padres fan base takes this as true, we're not going to feel like there's any room for improvement until AJ Preller is gone, right? Like that's what the fan base is going to, if we keep seeing stuff like this come out, we're going to have a bad opinion about it. And going back to Dennis Lin, Ken Rosenthal, Dennis Lin's kind of been on outsider status ever since that article, according to lots of sources.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
We shouldn't be at this place where we have to rely on Twitter accounts to tell us how the Padres org is operating.
And I want to say one more time, it is entirely possible, nay, likely, that Too Much Morton's is 100% accurate in what he's saying, or 90% accurate, 95% accurate in these claims. But that's kind of what the whole point of journalism is. It's to be able to distinguish truth from falsehood, and a weak story from a strong story, and give you a factual basis upon which you can make decisions. And right now, the Padres can say, well, this is all BS. You know, there was even a rumor online that there was a hunt for the leaker in the front office this weekend. Who leaked? I've got to know. But with all of that, you can apologize for this organization as long as you want. It's, Preller's underperformed his projection, his Vegas number, his Pythagorean number far more often than he has exceeded it. In fact, in every full season, he's gone under those numbers. And at some point, the apologies have to melt away, and just the simple numbers, the stats, have to be what tells the story. And the stats are that the Padres, as an organization, players come here and get worse. Players come here and don't develop, Rafe.
This is kind of a bridge into one of the other things on our menu, but there was a column that came out from Bryce Miller at the UT this week about Trent Grisham, and talking about how the Padres need a change in center field, that the offensive performance has reached a tipping point, and that whatever Trent Grisham does with his glove is not justified by what he does with his bat, and therefore we need to make a change. I have a couple things I think about that. The first of all is that it's the wrong place to look in terms of like what's wrong with the team. You bake in having a poor bat at center field for the glove. That's because it's such a valuable defensive position. Where this team needs to improve offensively is at first base, is at catcher, which we've begun that process, and it's a designated hitter. I don't want to hear about offense at center field. I don't really care, to be completely honest. That's number one. That being said, if you want to look at changes we can make, we can't make any changes. We are boxed in. That article floated putting Brandon Dixon in the outfield. That's something I have absolutely no idea or no desire to see. And if you want to look at around the league, both Estuary Ruiz and Jack Sawinski are having stellar years in center field. Estuary Ruiz is hitting .267 with a .329 on base, .347 slugging, a .98 WRC plus, and 28 stolen bases already this year for a one WAR season. Jack Sawinski is hitting .236, .351, .490 with a .128 WRC plus and 1.3 WAR. And those guys were throw-ins in trades that Preller made in the last couple years. And so, even if you want to make a change, okay, that's great, that's fine. But our general manager has now boxed us in, and this is the same thing that I think, like, it's all part of the same web. I hate to be Charlie Day chain smoking in front of the corkboard, but it's like, it's hoping on upside, not getting it, and then trading depth. That that he is the one thing that AJ Preller is amazing at is he's a wizard at finding talent. He has no idea what he has, though. You know what I mean? And that's the issue.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Is like, you need the counter. You need the kind of counterbalance of like someone who's there to find it and someone who's there to say, hey, like, we have this, we have that. And by the way, most teams have a general manager and a president of baseball operations. AJ Preller is the entire thing for the Padres. So there is no counterbalance. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on the Trent Grisham thought, but I think it's all connected to this argument.
No, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
But I want,
can't imagine, Chris. Can't imagine.
I have thoughts on anyone coming after my boy, but Rafi, would you say that Trent Grisham falling off last year specifically, and we can go back to since his injury, would you say that if it's not a stop sign, it might be a warning light to like slow down?
So are you saying like that the front office should have been more working with him because he got hurt?
I'm saying the front office should have been doing that for sure, but also keeping some of your backup plans like Estuary Ruiz. Like if you see the warning sign, start stocking up instead of being stubborn and sticking to your plan, which is Trent Grisham being Gold Glover and hitting 20 to 25 home runs and getting on base and being generally inconsistent because he hasn't quite lived up to that. He's not hitting at a 20 home run. What's that?
I said yes. I agree with you.
So like if that plan isn't working out, you at least have to have the flexibility and lack of hubris needed to go, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Let's slot in Estuary Ruiz last year because we know his upside's different than Jose Azocar's. Let's get a look at these guys. Let's keep backup plans so that we aren't moving. Fernando Tatis can't play every position. He can't fill all the holes on your roster. You need depth.
It's the Ruiz one doesn't hurt me. It doesn't bother me so much because it was in the Josh Hader trade, which is a trade that you make every time if someone's giving you Josh Hader. Like, I know we could talk about actual performance, but at the time I was a fan of the trade. The Sawinski one is the one that bothers me because he was traded for Adam Frazier, and it was the same thinking of, I can just take this guy and put him in here and he'll play wherever on the field and he'll hit just like he's always hit. We bought into an Adam Frazier hot pocket and that sent Sawinski away. And now the Pittsburgh Pirates have 5 more years of Jack Sawinski at an incredibly cheap cost control. And we are struggling with Trent Grisham. Talking about injury, like Trent Grisham still put up 2 WAR last year because his glove was so good. His glove hasn't been as good this year. And now his value's tanked. And so there is no option. There is no option, Craig.
Let's go where Trent Grisham was at the trade deadline when that move happened. He had been in decline since his injury. He had a crazy good start to the season, came back from that injury, and looked exactly like he does now. So if you're taking that new information, not planning on, not insisting to yourself that you are right, that your center field is definitely taken up for the next X amount of years because you offered the guy an extension last year. Well, I offered him an extension. I must be right about his future potential. Look at what's in front of you and go, maybe I don't move this piece. Maybe it's not necessary.
And that's kind of where I come back, guys. So like specific to Grisham and the one stat that Bryce put in his column that I definitely want to repeat because it is sticky. All right. 1,102 at bats since May of 2021. Average is 198. OPS is 653. He is the 3rd lowest WAR for qualified center fielders in all of baseball. So he's the 28th ranked center fielder right now. And that's with whatever you want to give him credit for his glove. I'll go back to what John and I said in our Grisham review and what Pods Above Replacement said in their Grisham review. This was the winter to trade Trent Grisham. This was the last chance you had for another organization to look at his numbers, look at his Gold Gloves, and say, maybe we can sneak another win out of him by boosting his offense. At this point, it's pretty hard, even if an organization really did think that about Trent Grisham, to have you get anything for him at all in a trade, because now he is just he's probably an under 200 major league hitter. That's probably what he is. When you've got 1,100 at bats of that, that's probably what you are. There's probably not a higher side. But what kills me, this is in the bigger scheme of things, is our genius GM seemingly being bereft of ideas. Like, what are the big ideas that AJ Preller has other than get this guy, sign him up forever. Right? And for Fernando Tatis, look, that was a great move, right? We still don't know what the rest of Fernando Tatis Jr.'s career will be, but I think we can all agree that was a pretty good bet to make on an age 22-year-old player, given what he had done at age 20 and age 21.
He was trying to extend Grisham that same offseason, by the way.
Yeah, he was. Jake Cronenworth, there was no reason in the universe to extend Jake Cronenworth. None. Okay? The only reason to extend Yu Darvish was because, Ryan Weathers is currently the third starter on next year's depth chart. You got to have something there. But in general, the way that AJ Preller has built his team is to grab and hold. Grab, hold, commit, more years. And what has this group of Padres ever done? I mean, they did good in a 60-game sample that now appears even more than ever to be, filled with aberration. They had a goodish team in 2021 that collapsed and wound up being a losing record. And they had last year's team that got hot for a month. Right? Started well, played well over 3 months of below 500 ball, got hot for a month, got hot in the playoffs, and now we're committed to this team for years and years and years to come. And there's a lot of guys you might want to move off of in a year. Never mind right now. And I just feel like if we're going to talk about the big issues of the San Diego Padres and the big issues of AJ Preller, and you want to talk about, hey, he's too much of a micromanager, he's a president of baseball ops that doesn't have a GM, I agree with that. He's a president of baseball ops that's going on scouting trips to confirm what his road scouts are saying and what his ex-checkers are saying. You don't have to do that if you're president of baseball operations. Andrew Friedman isn't showing up on some backfield in the Dominican in June when it's time to work on his team, but that's what Preller is routinely doing. But to me, the biggest issue is, does this guy really have dynamic ideas? Because for me, a dynamic GM is knowing when he has to get off of players as well as when he has to grab and hold. And right now, all I see is grab and hold.
Yeah, dude.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, please, Rafi. I
was just going to say, you only lose when you sell. So that's his mentality, But we've talked about the Cronenworth thing, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. It's not the issue that I have the biggest. The extension itself is not the thing that I'm the most upset about. What I'm most upset about is turning him into a first baseman, because especially this year, he has a 155 WRC plus when he's playing second base. So he's hitting at second base. He's also a good second baseman. Ha-Seong Kim is effing incredible. Okay. It all comes back full circle. Did we even need to make the Xander Bogaerts signing? The Cronenworth extension makes a lot of sense if you've got Ha-Seong Kim there. And then even if you're not going to extend Ha-Seong Kim, you're going to have Jackson Merrill coming in. You didn't need to make the signing. So it's Chris, you already said time is a flat circle, but it's also the arguments that it all comes back to the same issues. It's making moves that aren't necessary to try and find an upside that may not even be there in the first place. So
Nola, Frazier,
yes.
Extension of Cronenworth. Yeah, man, they're all the exact same vein getting jabbed.
And you're right. But I don't care. I'll say it again. I'll say it anyway. The Cronenworth contract really, really, really bothers me. Here's another main reason why. All right. You guys know who my favorite player is on the San Diego Padres.
Half of San Diego's favorite player.
Absolutely. We chant his name. Ha-Seong Kim. All right. I love watching this kid play. Ha-Seong Kim has been in the big leagues for 3 years. And you can look at his numbers, you can look at his metrics, you can look at his defense, and you can see a player that is improving. You can see a player that in small ways is incrementally getting better.
Preach.
Please, somebody, show me a thing that Jake Cronenworth is getting better. Okay, I'll give it to you. Go look at his sliders from 2020 through 2023. His walk rate has improved. Okay? His walk rate has improved. And literally every other slider gets worse, 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 worse. From 2020 to 21 to 22 to 23, his xWOBA goes down, down, down. His slugging goes down, down, down. He's on down, down, down. Hard hit percentage down, down, down. Barrel down, down, down. Everything's in decline. So if you're looking at your two middle infielders, one of whom everything's in decline and one of whom everything is going up, and one is younger than the other, and it's the one who's going up, and you lock into the guy who's going down and is older. Like, in what world did that ever make any sense? Oh, well, don't worry. We can trade Jake Cronenworth. Oh, well, don't worry. $12 million a year isn't that big a deal. If he's hitting under 200 as a first baseman, you're not trading him for shit. Like, you're not trading him for fucking Domingo Tapia. All right? Like, where is that's Preller in a bottle. Buy high, hold, because what are you going to do? Sell low? You know? And you wind up with these distressed assets. And it's so friggin' frustrating because you want to know how to get better and how to get out of this. And we're all Padres fans. And we don't want to believe that we're headed for a decade of fucking mediocrity and bad baseball and misery. Like, we want to believe that there's a championship club somewhere in this club. And I'm trying to find it, guys. I really am. I'm trying to find it. And the more we talk about the big issues, the more I truly, truly, truly wonder, will this team ever win anything with AJ Preller as GM?
I'm not confident. I'm not. And like, it's really unfortunate that there was an article literally written in 2016 about AJ Preller, the teardown artist is what it was titled. And it was all about that collapse. And I don't think that what we have seen in the years since has dissuaded me off of that perspective. And it's kind of shocking that he's had this much of a second chance to build and try and do this. And have I heralded his name from the rooftops after signing the Tatis extension, which I know we have on our menu, and I know we're getting late on time, but I'm not. My top line is I'm not worried about Fernando Tatis Jr. and he'll be fine, and I still think that extension is going to look very good. Yes, I have heralded his name. I've heralded AJ Preller's name. I don't think he is capable of being a major league general manager / president of baseball ops. I think he's maybe one of the best scouts baseball has ever seen. And I don't think he goes past that. So that's my opinion.
I have hope. And it goes to the root of what Rafi just said. He's a scout. He can see players' raw ability, and he's put together a team that San Diego has never seen in terms of talent. Now, where I'm scared to counter the hope is all the intangibles, everything that isn't on the baseball cards, as Manny Machado so much likes to put out. He's blown through managers at an alarming clip. He hired Bob Melvin, about as sterling a reputation in the game, to come be a manager. And Bob, I think, added ballast last season that kept the season afloat when it might have tipped over and capsized. And now he's in the exact same boat. He thought he was going to be in a more stable boat. I hate to go back to the maritime metaphors all the time, guys, but it's my background. And he's in the same friggin' boat, and that's got to be exhausting. And it feels like whenever they cut to Bo Mel, he looks exhausted. So I'm hopeful that there will be a gelling, there will be a cohesion within the clubhouse. The evidence is stacking up that there's not. You have Juan Soto saying, "Don't ask me why the offense going," and he talks to the guys down there. I don't know which direction he was facing. He might have been facing San Diego Bay, and he was talking about the guys selling bait on the pier. I don't know, but there feels like there's rifts, and there's in the lines of communication. In you need everybody pulling in the same direction to be a successful Major League Baseball team. It doesn't feel like that. It breaks my heart. That's all I want to see is the team gelling together like they did last season. That's all they need to do. But you need to see the catalyst for that. You need to see it somewhere, and we're not seeing it this year. And if it's because the head is rotten, it's never going to get fixed until that's gone.
All right, let's wrap up with two topics, and we'll treat them both pretty quickly. Jay Jaffe wrote a really solid deep dive analysis of Fernando Tatis Jr.'s return to Major League Baseball. And a couple of things I think stand out. Fernando Tatis Jr. has dropped his K percentage to the lowest in his career. His walk percentage is the lowest in his career as well. He's actually being challenged in the strike zone far more than he ever has in his career. He's seeing more pitches in the zone. He is slightly chasing more, but he's doing a really bad job on pitchers' pitches. He's hitting 085 with a 106 slugging on chase pitches. But while I guess his exit velo is down 3 ticks, Rafi, overall from his career, and his barrel percentage is the lowest of his career so far as well. I kind of feel like a year and a half away from professional baseball, what we've seen, and especially what we've seen the last 14 games, 6 homers. I'm not that worried. I think Tatis is on his way back.
I'm not worried. The barrel percentage stuff is a little bit concerning, but at the same time, like I think it's exactly what you said. It's been an adjustment period. It feels like even in the last couple weeks, anecdotally, things have been better, and also that bears out with the numbers. Since May 21st, his max exit velo is the highest it's been, 113.4. His barrel percentage is up to 15%, which is starting to climb back up to where it was. And they referenced these numbers of other players who have had kind of big year to year drops in barrel rates. And on the list were like Yasmani Grandal and Bobby Dalbec and Josh Donaldson, but also on the list were like Ronald Acuna Jr. and George Springer and Austin Riley. And like you tend to see that Tyler O'Neill, like you tend to see that like the worrisome stuff is like in the older guys because they're getting older, and that's just them coming up against father time. The younger guys are plenty capable of bouncing back. And I mean, like I hate to draw the 1-to-1 comparison, but I mean, look at Cody Bellinger has had a decent year, bouncing back so far after having a really bad year, final year with the Dodgers, and took a flyer, and he'll probably be on the move at the trade deadline. And he was coming back from a similar surgery as Fernando Tatis Jr. I'm not worried. The other thing that the article points out is that the slugging percentage on expected slug on fly balls is much lower, and the distance that his fly balls have traveled is much lower. But I also think that like once he stops playing at Petco Park in May, that will also be better. I like he. By the way, again, going back to the same thing I talked about with like Trent Grisham and everything, like he's not the issue this year. He's not the issue this year. And especially at the amount of money that we're paying him and everything like that, he's performing fine. He's a pretty good player this year with elite defense. Just give him time. He'll be fine.
18 months away from baseball is insane. It almost never happens. The list of names you just gave, Rafi, were guys that were in the same boat 2022 or their previous year to 2023. They mentioned another name in that article, which was a guy who had an amazing rookies campaign in 2017, I want to say, and then had the biggest drop off until Tatis this year. And that guy's name is Aaron Judge. His career has turned out fine. He has had ups and downs, peaks and valleys, but the peaks are about as big as they possibly get. And that's the potential for Tatis Jr. as well. He's only like 100 points off, 150 points off his career norm, OPS. That is going to fix itself. The guy's passing the eye test. If he stays healthy and just keeps seeing major league pitching, I think by the end of the season, we're going to be right back to we've got maybe the best player in the game. And it's not his fault. the team's losing when he's got two other guys that are supposed to be performing at his level, performing like Hassan Kim.
Well, the only last thing I'll say to tack onto this, because I agree with both of you guys, and he's doing fine, right? Um, but with him doing fine, his WRC plus is in the 120s, and his career WRC plus is in the 150s. And the only concern, or the big concern, I think you really have, and it's kind of dovetailing from the conversation we had at the end of last week's show, it's like, is this team built where the Padres' win condition is that each of their top four must match their career OPS plus or improve upon it, or career WRC plus, either way, either stat you want to use, in order for the team to have success. And if they are below, even a little below, they can't have success, because Soto's almost even now. He's at 154 OPS plus for the year, 157 for his career. So right there, he's doing the job, right? But Manny's way under, Bogarts is under, Tatis is under. Like, can they win if these guys are 80% or 85% of what they've been in their career? And right now, the answer is no. I don't think they can do it. So it's like, cool, Taddy, but we need a handful more of those 2-homer games so you can push that up a little bit more to get us to where we need to be.
He's just the one I blame the least.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's right.
The difference between Tatis's 120-ish WRC plus and his career number is a much less of an impact on the team than the difference between Manny Machado's 74 WRC plus this year and his career like 127 or something like that. And the same goes for Xander Bogaerts. Again, I taking the hot pocket out of it, he's also in the 70s in terms of his WRC plus, and that is against a career number of 117. So it's when you get into the 30 to 40 to 50 point golf, that's the impact.
All right, last thing on the show this week, and it's last on the menu because it literally happened the day after our last show. So we're now 6 days into it. But today, Monday, June 5th, is the first day that there is not a free Padres game on MLB TV. Bally Sports, the Diamond Sports Group, however you want to put it, didn't make their payments to the Padres on purpose, and MLB reclaimed the broadcast rights, the television and streaming broadcast rights from Bally on Tuesday of last week, and put them out on their own. So now you can watch Padres games on MLB TV with a single team package, which is either $20 a month or $75 for the season. I believe, but I'm not 100% sure, that Padres season ticket holders who had the MLB package get the Padres package included.
Yeah, if but you have to claim it by a date. You have a deadline to claim that.
Okay. If you already had the MLB package, it doesn't just slot in. You have to buy this separate. However, also the Padres / MLB made direct deals with 4 different streamers. So if you have DirecTV, it's on a channel. If you have Cox, it's on a channel. If you have Spectrum, it's on a channel. If you have Fubo, the streaming Fubo, it is on a channel as well. So they actually almost increased their potential audience just by pulling off Bally by 3x. They went from around 1 million-ish to almost 3 million potential households that can watch Padres baseball. And there's been some like hand-wringing. Barry Bloom, who is not a fan of the Padres at all, and I don't think Padres fans have a lot of respect for him, wrote a really kind of shitty article on Sunday, which was mostly a vehicle for John Moore's quotes, but insinuating that the Padres were going to be in really, really big trouble in future years because they're missing out on the money from this this Bally Sports Diamond Sports deal, that there's basically about $420 million of that deal over the final 7 years that they're not receiving. But guys, they just opened up direct to consumer over the top, bringing their product directly to the fan where they get the money directly, and they've just tripled their potential audience. Isn't it more likely that the Padres are going to make more money off of this new broadcast arrangement than it is that they're going to make less money?
I mean, like, models are changing crazy, so maybe, possibly. But one thing I know, that I don't care what dinosaur brain John Moores has to say about it.
Yeah.
Like, that I know that for a fact. I know, of all the voices I want to hear input on it, his is the last one. Maybe we'll call Dean Spanos and find out what his thoughts are on it next. You know, I think that Papa Pete has shown a capacity and an ability to shake up his business model in a way. That's where the imagination in the Padres front office is right now. It's not towards the baseball product. It's towards how to make money and how to give people the best fan experience. So I'm extremely confident they'll find ways to make their money and maximize this opportunity that Major League Baseball has by getting out of these contracts with stale broadcasters.
Yeah, I think the model is broken. I think, hyping up deals that were signed, television deals that were signed in 2010 is silly, like straight up silly. And in the new streaming universe, the idea to go direct to consumer and go over the top is the best possible thing the Padres could do. The production value of the broadcast went up the day they got off of Valley Sports and got away from their cheap ass cameras. I never have to hear that really crap theme again. Not that they've really come up with anything better at MLB so far. It's been super generic. But
I did go listen to John Tesh's Round Ball Rock, and it is a jam, by the way, 100%. Just hate to derail you, but facts, Craig.
Yeah. So, I mean, call John Tesh up, MLB. get Hardball Rock or whatever.
That's it, Hardball Rock, yeah.
No, Round Ball Rock is the basketball one, but now we need one for baseball. We need Hardball Rock
Nailed it.
Whatever. Yeah, Anyways, I don't know if you got anything to add to that, Rafe. I just think I think it's an improvement for I honestly do. I think Bally was a complete friggin' joke. We spent 2 years going, well, Bally isn't here, Bally isn't there. Where are we going to find our game? And now they're just going, here it is. You want to watch the Padres? $20 a month. There you go.
The Barry Bloom article is like trying to sell uncertainty as this boogeyman that's actually scary, when in reality MLB has already guaranteed that major league teams where this happens to them are going to receive at least 80% of the money that they were guaranteed from their TV deal. So at most, the potential loss to the Padres would be a few $1 million, which is not nothing, but that's not going to sink the organization, which was the tone of the article. And I think in the long run, it's absolutely going to be a benefit to have more people able to access the games. I am not in market, so I pay for MLB TV. It has changed my life. That is not an exaggeration. I watch so many more games. It is so easy. For all the grief that I have about MLB, like the app is fantastic. And it is so easy for me to watch baseball. The quality is always great. This is nothing but upside, and I'm so excited for people who haven't had the opportunity to watch on MLB TV to get to do so. So hang in there, because it will all be worth it.
All right, guys. Love it. A lot of stuff to talk about. It's tough. It's tough out here in these Padres podcasting streets these days. It is hard. Hard living.
We just want Xander and Manny off of the incredible fuck brother bandwagon.
The Disgusting Brothers. The Disgusting Brothers.
Well, for my fellow disgusting brothers, Chris and Rafi, I'm Craig. Thank you so much for listening. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub, Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. If you've made it to the end of this show and you enjoy what we're doing, consider supporting us for as low as $5 a month at Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Everybody have a great week. We'll be back with Have a Drink. We'll be back with group therapy later on. And please, can we win some fucking games? Go Padres.